Welcome to Intuitive Connection, where spirituality and psychology meet to help you be your best and brightest self. I'm your host, Victoria Shaw, and in each episode, I'll help you to awaken your own inner wisdom, step into your power, and live a more divinely inspired life. You're here to let your inner light shine. Are you ready? Let's do this. So hello and welcome to Intuitive Connection. Today we have an intuitive reading, and I have been running around so much that I don't even remember what this beautiful soul's question is, but I have agreed to answer it here on the show. And today we have our guest, Maeve. So happy to have you, Maeve. Welcome. Can you share with me and the listeners what your question is today?
My question is it's big, and I'm happy to distill it down. It's in relation to a health journey I've been on, and also parallel in some way how that is working with where and when I make the next physical move to my next spot where I'm going to live.
Okay, so I'm going to tune into your energy right now. And again, for you and for listeners, I am not a medical intuitive, so to speak. I don't offer medical advice on the show. She has her own doctors and her own medical support team that I know that you are going to pay attention to. So I'm giving this disclaimer. It's important, but I do feel that all of our medical physical health journeys, right? It all comes from the same place. It all comes from the same place. It's all different ways in which our soul is here to explore and express itself in human form. And that I very much do. And I help my clients to support them on that journey. So I just wanted to give that little disclaimer as I tune into your beautiful energy. So it feels to me like you've had a rough road physically in this body, probably going back on and off, even if you don't remember it, for as long as you've been in this particular go round, because I see even as a child, there was some frailty. So this is a pattern that's been established since you started. And I see even early on, even in your family of origin, the way a cold was treated for you, the way there was a lot of fear around illness, and there was a lot of fear around your illness. So I don't know if this was just family culture or if there was something early on that made your family very extra protective of your health. But I do see from the earliest on, like everybody looking over you saying like, is she going to get a cold? Is she going to get this? So it's set up in you, if I'm reading correctly, and you'll give me your impressions in a moment, but it's set up in you a real fear and a real distrust for your physical form. And a real like fear around, is my body really here to support me? And the short answer to that question, I see you nodding. The short answer to that question is always yes. It's always yes. And again, we work with the vessel that we're given, and we work with the journey that we have chosen. And on some level, you have chosen this, though your human self might be, going down that journey, kicking and screaming. But it's important to recognize more and more that that vessel does support us, and that sometimes it's making peace with the physical vessel and just making peace with the process of life that we are really here to embody through this human journey. So now I just said a lot. Give us some background if you don't mind, and tell me if any of that landed so far.
Yeah, it was really interesting. My mother's mother died before I was born. She died in her 40s of cancer.
Okay.
And so when I was young, I started having operations at 5 years old. Nothing major, but what you said made so much sense to me to understand my mother and how she I felt as a child that she didn't pay enough attention when I had a cold or things like that. And I think what I understood from what you said was it just gave me a whole different perspective of maybe that fear for her because she'd lost her mother so young, that she had this fear about her children being sick as well or something. That just really spoke to me when you said that. It was pretty deep for me.
Yeah. Can you give me your mother's first name?
Linda.
Oh, she's complicated. She's complicated. And I think that
is.
when I read her, what I see too, when you were sick, she would get angry at you. She would get angry at you. And I do believe that, I don't know if she expressed it, but that was her feel. She would get angry. So your inner child, you can try it on, and I'm not 100%. So always try it on. Don't try to make it fit into your sweet little brain. Always, you are in charge of your own interpretation of what comes through, and you're also in charge of your own experience. So only you can know what fits. But my read is that your mother she was scared. She was scared of you. She was scared for you. And I also think that she was very angry at her mother for passing. She was very angry at her mother for passing. She felt very abandoned. And she probably felt abandoned before her mother actually left her physical body. She probably felt abandoned earlier on. But your mother, if I read her correctly, I don't know if she's still in a body, but I don't think she's the most conscious person that you're ever going to meet. Meaning sometimes, we are to varying degrees aware of our own motivations, of our own feelings, of our own why we do things. And there are some people that are so cut off that, they could say that, the sun is shining on a day that's pouring rain. And I mean that metaphorically, because they just refuse to see what they're not ready or willing or able to process. And that to me feels like your mom. So there was probably a lot of things going on under the scenes that you intuited as a child that your mother disallowed. And I just get the sense too, a lot of fear, but also a lot of anger and frustration. And she might have been someone who told you I had the perfect childhood. I don't know. I feel like there would be dribs and drabs. There would probably be different stories depending on which way the wind was blowing, because I see someone who's very resentful. So I'm sure she had some resentment stories going on. But I think that there's probably, this is what I'm getting, there are probably villains and heroes in her stories, and they probably weren't always the right villains and heroes. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense. Yeah.
And sometimes we do that. We segment our reality, right? Because we need a good guy. So this parent's the good one, that one's the bad one. And of course, when we know in real life, there are no villains and heroes. There's just a lot of people doing the best they can do and, through their limited level of awareness. And sometimes that level of awareness is higher than others. But in your mom's mind, she had a very particular view of reality. And I don't think she was very self-aware of herself either. So I don't think that she was very self-reflective. I think she's the kind of person that, probably had very limited, she had a very good understanding of what the social conventional rules were. That was big for her.
Mm-hmm.
But she didn't have a lot of understanding of how her behaviors impacted other people. She knew how to follow rules.
Wow.
Yeah. Does that resonate?
Well, yes, because her father was a minister.
Ah.
And track back to what you said also. And one of the things, even with my journey in the last few years, because things kind of settled through my life a little bit, but then kicked up very largely in the last few years. And I still remember getting really upset. I was crying and I was really upset about what was going on. And she said, "It's okay, things will be better." And I used to always get, it's like, but right now I'm feeling these feelings, so there was always that what you said really made a lot of sense to me, because it was like that, oh, that's not really happening now. Everything's gonna be better soon. So let's just kind of ignore that that's happening right now. That was a sense that I always had as a child. Like,
yeah.
I used to always joke that, if I was dying, my mother wouldn't take me to the hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that would have been a fear for her. The guys want to switch gears a little bit, which is a little bit strange, but I'm going to follow their cue. They want me to ask you a question with whatever health journeys or whatever things that you're going on with now. We have a little bit of idea of the origins of them. What are they keeping you from doing that you think you might want to do?
I feel like I've been through a real change in this time. Like I've really, even though it's been a really hard journey, in particular for the last 6 years, I've seen the benefit and the change and the beautiful kind of metamorphosis of myself in this time in a lot of ways, in terms of how I was living and thinking as in this body
Okay.
that I've been given. And so now I feel like they're stopping me from expanding outside of where I am physically and the way that I'm turning up in the world.
And the reason they asked that question was to prompt the second one because as soon as you answered, I was like, oh, that's the question I really wanted to ask. But the guys are telling me they're both relevant. So I want to get into this and I want to hear exactly what they have to say. So hold on. And what they want to say is this: look, every experience that we have in life, but particularly physical illness, always serves a role, and it can serve multiple roles. And sometimes there's a myriad of reasons why you would manifest something like this. One sometimes is to be seen or heard or cared for, right? If you didn't feel cared for as a child, this is an opportunity where that comes up again, and you can find other outlets for someone to say, yeah, honey, you're sick. We're going to help you with that, right? It also gives you that opportunity to feel into what's going on and do that for yourself. Because as a child, oftentimes we feel so dependent on the people around us acknowledging our reality, acknowledging our experience, and caring for us in a way that our sweet little soul would like to be cared for. Unfortunately, many of our caregivers in this human world suffer from the plague of humanity as well. And so by the time they get to the place when they're having children, and it's not a plague, it's actually a beautiful gift, but they have their own limitations, right? They have their own limitations, and they're seeing you and dealing with you through their own broken lens. And therefore, as a child, that is looking to them, to see your beautiful brightness, as you want to be reflected back in that beautiful mirror that is your caregivers, that is not really a mirror at all. You start to learn about, this perceived brokenness and what's missing in them and what's missing in you. And you forget your divine nature, or aspects of your divine nature. But as an adult, you have a chance now to go back to that inner child and give her a hug and tell her what you needed to hear then now, because you do have an adult self in you now that is not in that vulnerable position anymore. Does that make sense so far?
Makes a lot of sense.
So that's the first piece. That first piece for many people, you specifically, but I'm speaking generally too, is that's one of the gifts that illness can serve. The other gift that illness can serve sometimes is it can keep us from taking steps forward that we're not sure we're ready to make. And I think for you, and another way of thinking is a little self-handicapping, right? Like you could say, like, I'm going to run this race tomorrow. If I have a little bit of a cold and I don't, break my record, well, then I have an excuse. Or maybe I don't have to show up at all because I'm really nervous, but I have the stomach ache, so I don't have to go to school now and take that test. So sometimes illness serves that purpose as well for us when we're not ready to take a step. And illness actually creates, a little rest, a little break, a little excuse. So I would try that one on for size 2, because I do think that there are things in your life that you knew you needed to shift and grow, and you weren't quite ready to do it. And this was manifested because of that, but also to give you that space, that chrysalis in which to grow and to feel into those things and to get to a place when you were able to be reflective enough to know what those steps were, and also to be comfortable enough to start to take them in a way that didn't feel so threatening. Does that resonate?
Yes, all those points that you made were spot on.
Okay, your face says yes. The third reason, and for friends listening, these are not the exhaustive reasons of all the reasons that someone could attract a physical illness into their space. These are just examples that may or may not be relevant for some of you. But the last one for you is often things are learned in the journey. We learn things about ourselves. We learn things about the world. Sometimes it's when we really are faced with peril that we really have to dig deep and look at things that maybe you weren't looking at before, because they're like right in your frickin' face. And I also think, even more softly put, there are things that you've learned from this journey about their coping skills, their thinking skills, their navigating skills. There's being softer with yourself. There's even like navigating a medical system and how you stand up for yourself, how you set boundaries, how you own your truth. Like all of those things you have learned and are continuing to learn from this journey, which are ginormous. They're ginormous. So again, your head is nodding. Does that make sense?
Yes. Again, you're just so spot on with all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
And these are things I've really been intuiting through it.
Yeah. So I'm validating that for you then. I'm validating that for you. And it seems like we're all over the place today, but I always follow the guides. 2 warning questions are coming in my brain, so I want to tune in. One is back to your mother, because I feel like there's something that you want to do or wanted to do. It's aligned to your mother. Is she still in a body? Is she still living?
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know if it has to do with her approval or areas that she wouldn't go. There seems to be a little bit still of a struggle in you with respect to her and wherever you want to go next. And like, it's still, for me, her energy does not play nicely with your energy. And even when you think about her, I mean, I'm sure you love her very much. I'm not criticizing her at all, but being around her or some aspects of her kind of makes you feel sick. Like even now, it's not just past stuff.
I don't know. It's interesting because we're very close. Like we connect every week.
Okay.
And I think I'm a lot deeper than my mother. So the way for me that I've been able to create this relationship with my mother that we have now is by really seeing her humanness and loving her unconditionally for that. And so I know that I go a lot deeper than she does on many levels, but she's my mom and she's the only one I have. So I connect with her where she's at.
All right. I want to tune into all of this because I know it's all going to wrap into a neat little bow. I haven't found all the ends of the string yet. And I want to just tune in. First of all, the guides are giving you a big old hug right now because you really, really need that. And so is your mom, who is coming to me, even though she's still in a body, but she's presenting as if she's not. She says it's been a hard journey for you. She says, I don't fully understand you. I don't fully understand what makes you tick. I haven't agreed with all of your choices. And I have a very, this word's coming through and I don't, circumspect. I'm not sure what that word means, but she's saying I have a very circumspect, it may or may not be a word. Sometimes I don't hear them right. Way of understanding things and dealing with things. And it's just not your way. Your way and my way could not be more different. And I think one of the things that you've learned from this experience is how to honor yourself, how to stand up for yourself, how to set boundaries for yourself, how not for people to say, no, 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 this isn't real. No, 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 you're wrong. But really, like more and more to say, like, this is my experience and this is what I need and this is not what I need. And you're starting to make choices to really empower yourself through the medical system, through a lot of things. And I think as much as you'd like to be seen by your mom, and I think she sees that aspect more now. I think as an adult where she's not responsible for you, it is much easier for her to take care and love and of your being ill, because like she doesn't take it personally anymore. You're not slowing her down in any way. Like as a child, you might have been. And she's also just not so scared of it anymore. When you were a child, she was very afraid of illness, of your illness, of anything. And I even think, I don't know what your religious background is, but I think she was taught somewhere, wow, your mom's going to get a healing today. Whew. She was taught somewhere that illness means you did something wrong. And so I think she believed that her mother did something wrong and left her, like her inner child, her adult. But I think there was something in her religious upbringing, something implicit that sort of said when bad things happen to people, it's because they did something wrong. Right. I don't know if that resonates, but that's what I get.
I wouldn't know. She wouldn't have told me that because
Yeah.
she doesn't talk about those kind of things. So I wouldn't have known. I mean,
Yeah.
I try and pry stuff like that out of her, but it is literally.
I don't think she has the bandwidth to have that conversation because emotionally she's very young.
Yes,
Emotionally, she's maybe like 11 or 12.
correct.
You know what I mean? So she doesn't have the bandwidth of how old she is.
Yes, all of that stuff. Yes.
Yeah. So I don't think she would be aware. You have more emotional intelligence than she does and more emotional awareness, and you always have. I would say this just off cuff, then I want to get to your other topic. When we have more emotional bandwidth from a parent, it is natural for the inner child to try to make up for that. So I hope that you have learned that you don't need to do that and that you don't have to do that so that you're safe and cared for and protected. You need to worry about what you know about you. And like you said before, you love her, you honor her, and you let her be who she is. And you make it to be no reflection of you. And I think that's like the biggest learning that you've had through this journey. Now, again, the guides want me to ask you what you're going to do when you get well, because I do think that there's a little bit of this self-handicapping going on. There's a little bit of this, I've gotten used to being this way. There's a little bit of, I've gotten used to the secondary gains of living this way, if you know what that means.
Do.
Yeah. And first of all, you can be well and still say no to things. You can be well and still take care of yourself. You can feel well and still say no when someone else really wants you to say yes. You can be well and fail at something, right? And what is failure anyway? Failure is just like, no, it's not trying hard enough, because that one came out of your mouth, I think, somewhere into my brain. Failure is the human idea of I should have done this and this happened and whatever. Like we live by trial and error, right? So failure is just, oh, that's just what happened now. I did the best I could do and I'm doing better every day. That's what that is, right? So and I want to get this from the guides, as you give yourself more grace and more understanding and more freedom and more love and more commitment, you will release the need to have illness be your guide. And the question is, and there's still some fear in here, so you might not be ready. Like, what is it that you're afraid of doing that your illness is preventing you? What risk is it preventing you for? And you don't have to have the answer now, but that's what they keep showing me. There's something in there. And because you're afraid, you haven't totally thrown off the illness yet. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Another way of posing the question is, why are you afraid of being well?
Mm.
What will you lose? So I would feel into that. You don't have to get an answer today. You might. They're not giving me one as of yet. But they are saying that there's certain steps in your life that you want to take forward and that you're scared. You're scared to do them. You're scared to move forward. It has to do, if I'm reading you correctly, with the sense of, am I enough? Am I worthy? Can I do this? And again, all you have to do is try, right? Try is enough. Try is enough. And every day we get up and we try new things and we experience new things. But for this particular thing for you that you want to do, trying is enough. And it's the fear of taking that step that is perpetuating your illness. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I believe I do. This is stuff that I've been thinking about, and really, it's come to me through as I've been. I mean, I went from bad to worse to terrible to worst. I mean, I've collected diagnoses. Like I'm at the shop pulling things off with a list full of,
Uh-huh.
I've got them all in my basket at the moment. And just when I think I'm breaking through, a whole new crazy illness gets diagnosed. And so I'm like, okay, and now I've got to do that little backpedal again and put the wool on and, and mixed with the fear and the fear of moving forward with what I want to do. It's almost like I'm afraid to shine my big light.
I think so. And remember too, what we focus on grows because of the law of attraction, which I hope you're familiar with.
I am.
And we live in a world and a medical system in particular that tends to want us to focus on what's wrong and tends to, in so doing, perpetuate a lot of fear and perpetuate the problem. So when you are in that system and you are constantly like, it makes sense. But for you, again, what they want to focus is on your next steps. And what would you like to do that you're afraid to do that I think is perpetuating your illness? Because they say you've learned pretty much, you can continue to learn from any life experience. And if it's happening to you, you are benefiting from it. You can't not be, because you're benefiting from every breath you take in this human skin. Your mind might judge some experiences better than others, but your soul is having a grand time no matter what is happening down here on earth. Really, it's true. And it is more a matter of your alignment or misalignment with your soul that tells you how good you're feeling in the moment, because your soul is always having a beautiful time. Your soul honors and is grateful for that piece of you that is having this experience, but it is not suffering or struggling at all. Right. But what the guides are saying is you've learned what you needed to learn from this. It's like, you're an archaeological dig and you've dug out all the bodies and all of the tombstones and all of the cups and plates and religious symbology. And like, you've seen it all. And so there's some reason why you're not leaving. There's some reason why you're not leaving the dig site, right? There's maybe some things that you need to say goodbye to. Thank them for their service, let them go. You might need to call the museum folks to come and scoop up what they want to put in the museum, whatever, for posterity. But there's some piece of your identity that is still like, you don't want this to be over. And so, I would invite you to meditate on that and to feel into that. And again, recognize that if there's any piece of this too that is, preventing me from moving forward or giving me an excuse not to move forward, I need to look at that too. And forward steps can be very small. And by the way to break this pattern, if you so choose, is to start taking micro steps, even though you're scared and even though you don't feel well. And then, see how you do a little bit at a time. Some of the steps that you take, you'll feel worse right away because it's so scary for you. There's so much fear. But if you sit with yourself and you own yourself and you hug yourself, you'll start to find the way out. Does that make sense?
Nice. And can I ask a question about one particular part?
Yes, ask as many as you want because we're going to start wrapping up soon.
What if that block could be a person?
Yeah, sure. It could be a person, for sure. It's something that you feel like when you let this part of your life go, yeah, that could be it. You may let that go or change something there. Yeah, could be a pattern that you're holding on to for sure with another human being. I also do feel professionally, or there's something that you want to do as well. So I do feel like it's entwined with that, but it could be both things. It could be that there's a person that, as you move on, they're not going to come with you. If that's what you're saying, I'm just trying to interpret your words, not necessarily read them. But I also feel like too, there's somewhere that you want to go for yourself. It may not be like professionally, it might be personally. It might be like, I want to live in this way with this level of freedom and this level of joy. And, the people that I've known up until this point, they can't go there with me. And I've always sort of dimmed my light down so that it wasn't too bright for them. And I'm over that. Could be that too. But I also think there's a lot of fear. And so when you get to the edge, the fear comes up, and that's what is causing some of the reverberating illness. So when that happens for you, soothe yourself, talk to yourself like a sweet, beautiful child, and let yourself know that you're safe. No matter what's happening, you're safe, and that your light is the most beautiful gift that you came here to share with the earth. It's the most beautiful gift. And sometimes we shine too brightly for the people that, immediately are in our orbit when we're very young. And it's not really too bright so much. It's just that, they need it dimmed down because that's what they can see. It's not that your light isn't beautiful or perfect or wonderful. It's just simply that they are not of the bandwidth that they can receive it, right? And many of us choose that sort of patterning because when we do shine our light so bright, it is just all the more beautiful, you know, after we've been through that tunnel of darkness. Okay. But what's important to know, the guides say as we start to wind down, is that everything about you that is intrinsic to you is beautiful, is unique, is lovable, is remarkable, is perfect. It's just stunningly, beautifully perfect. Okay. That's true of you, my beautiful friend Maeve, and it's true of every other human being on this planet. And many of us have learned in many different ways to, cookie cutter down our magnificence into, whatever shape, we were taught was the correct one to be. And we've learned to dim our light. We've learned to dim our light or to shine our light through a tiny little crack that was available to us. And we are in a period of time now when we are supposed to open those floodlights and open the cracks and just shine that light until all of the barriers around us dissolve and we get to be fully and completely who we really are. And that is the invitation that is being opened to you. And even though sometimes when we have those experiences, our human self gets a little bit uncomfortable with the level of change that our light is demanding and requiring of us at this time, you can never lose anything that is intrinsic to you. And as you step into that bigger arena, you will be so supported and so loved and so delighted by everything that you bring into your life that, believe me, you will not miss anything, anything that you had before at all. And sometimes too, some of those things come with us as well. So I think we're going to start to wind it down here. Do you have any other questions before we wrap it up? I hope this was helpful for you.
It's been really helpful. It's given me certainly what we began with just gave me a totally different perspective on where some of this came from and how it's explained a lot for me.
Beautifulness.
In terms of place, I did mention about where and when about living. Was there anything that was coming through about that?
Yes. Here's what it is right now. I believe, but you tell me if I'm wrong, that there's some fear. There's two warring things. One is where I should go, as if where I am isn't good enough and I will fix my life by going where I should go. I wouldn't follow that train. That train is not going anywhere that you need to go. The second question is, if you have always dreamed about living somewhere and you've always thought that this would be like a fun thing to try, and it's one of those crazy Maeve ideas, that everyone would have been like, really, you're going to do that? I would start to feel into this. This would be the time to do that. This would be the time to do that. It may not be the smoothest transition if you don't believe fully and completely that you deserve it. But I do think if you do, it will be amazing. And even if you don't, you should do it anyway, because I think that your soul really is longing to express itself in its full majesty. And that means following those little nudges, doing what you love, and very most importantly, allowing yourself to quote unquote fail. Right. And what's a fail anyway? I move somewhere, I like it for a while, then I don't like it and I move somewhere else. Right. That's not a failure. That's evolution. That's expansion. That's actually what you're here to do. Right. It's only the mind that says we need to make a irrevocable decision for all of life for it to be right or wrong, rather than live each moment, explore in each moment, follow our intuition, our joy, our inspiration in each now, and then let life take care of itself. Does that help?
Does. I think I feel complicated because I'm partnered with someone.
Mm-hmm.
And whilst it's normal for me to go and follow those, go there, go here, it's not with the...
You may have a choice to make. Yeah. We might all be coming full circle. You might have a choice to make. At a certain point, my friend, you get to the point where you got to go, whatever that is, whether forward motion, whether I'm not telling you to move. I would never tell you what to do or what the right thing for you is. So you're not getting that here. But I will say that at a certain point, we usually feel enough critical, either it's discomfort or momentum or both, because sometimes the force of the momentum, when we are not aligned with it, causes a lot of discomfort. And you will know when the right time to go is. You will know. All right. I believe you're almost there now, but you will know. Okay. Sending you a ton of love. And thank you for sharing your beautiful story with listeners. I think that there were a lot of wisdom nuggets that came through for you today that I think other people will resonate with. I'll also invite you and listeners too to listen back to the episode on comfort zones. I think it was called Expanding Your Comfort Zone, because we touch on some of these issues there too. And the idea that while change and growth doesn't have to be uncomfortable, sometimes it is. And that episode, we talk a little bit about some of the reasons why, what makes it uncomfortable, and also how we can be a little bit more comfortable, right? When we are uncomfortable as we are expanding our comfort zone. So that's a little Zen koan for you all. And thank you guys all for tuning in. Thanks for our guest. Thanks to the guides. Thanks to everyone. You know, I love doing what I do. If you would like an intuitive reading, you probably won't get one on the show, but there are many, many options to connect with me. Go to my website, victoriashawintuitive.com, and I offer a range of readings from one-on-one sessions like this one here to group coaching and readings. And occasionally, even if you're in the Facebook group, Intuitive Connection Community, we do some free group readings over there. So tune in, check that out. But either way, keep listening. We love, 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 love that you all tune in every week. And we are very grateful to you. And namaste. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope that you found joy, strength, inspiration, and clarity from today's episode. If you'd like to learn more and connect with an amazing group of like-minded souls, please join us over on Facebook in the Intuitive Connection Community Facebook group, where we explore these topics in deeper detail, have additional live teachings, and host Facebook Lives with our amazing guests. I hope to see you there. And of course, if you want to learn more about me or the work that I do, please check out my webpage, victoriashawintuitive.com. Thank you so much again, and namaste.